Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I'm going to be showing you how you can clean meat. If you're interested in learning how to clean meat, I'm going to tell you some of the benefits of it. In my honest opinion, it just makes it taste and smell better. It smells fresher. A lot of the things that are used to clean meat, such as lime and vinegar and citrusy things like that, and things that are kind of more acidic, it just kind of helps to balance the smell and give it a more pleasant smell. On top of that, I feel like cleaning meat is most important when you're eating chicken. So it is, if anything at all, at least clean your chicken, because chickens, I feel like, are one of the meats that is just not regulated well. It's not cleaned well before it comes to your home. Usually there is a slimy substance underneath the skin of the chicken. At the end of the bone, there's kind of a yellowish skin. Sometimes it comes off easily, almost like peeling yellow skin. Other times you have to kind of scrape it off or cut it off. But there's yellowing at the end of the bone. A lot of times there's feathers, there's slime under the skin. So if nothing else, chicken definitely needs to be cleaned, taken care of before you cook it, because you could be eating feathers and things like that. And I know you probably won't die from it, but I just prefer not to eat feathers. So I'm going to show you how I clean this pork. Once again, it just kind of makes it fresher. It makes it taste better. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this lime in half. So I have 2 limes. I cut them in half. I'm also going to use a little bit of vinegar. What I'm going to do is just, well, let me go ahead and open this vinegar up. Just do like this. Make sure you're using one hand to pick up the meat, one hand does not touch the meat so you don't cross-contaminate. So, let's see. So just put the pork chops in whatever container you're using to clean the meat. Just take the lime, squeeze it on top of the meat. And trust me, we're going to do something with this lime. Next, I'm just going to take some vinegar and pour it on top of the meat, just a little bit. And now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take this lime skin, and at this point, both of my hands will be touching the meat. I'm going to take this lime skin and I'm just going to do this. It's almost like you are using a rag, just as people use a rag to scrub their bodies in the shower. You're using the lime to scrub the meat. So, got that one done. And it's perfect because we have 4 pieces of meat and 4 lime halves. So just that. Some people even use salt. They use salt because it's kind of abrasive, and they scrub the meat using salt and then of course rinse it off. So there are so many different ways that you can clean meat. I'm just showing you how I do it. Also, I must add, when you use lime and vinegar and acidic things like that to clean and soak the meat, makes the meat come out more tender, I have realized. Kind of naturally tenderizes the meat. So there's so many benefits when it comes to cleaning your meat before you eat it and season it. All right, last one, and I'm gonna take my last lime half. And I know this looks like a filthy process. However, I'm not scared of my food. I'm not scared of meat. Of course, you have to be very careful. You have to make sure that you're being hygienic, make sure you're washing your hands, make sure you're not cross-contaminating. However, I am not afraid of getting down and dirty, washing the meat. If you're afraid of it, maybe you shouldn't be eating it. I'm not afraid of it. So you're just using this lime to wash the surface of the pork. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the kitchen. I'm going to get my little brother to turn on the water for me so I won't touch the handle. And I'm just going to pour some water into this pan so it can kind of soak for a little bit. So I'll be right back. All right, guys, I'm back. My hands are clean. You know, made sure I didn't do any type of cross-contamination. But now that I'm back and that meat is kind of soaking, I am going to show you guys how I make my seasoning mix for the meat. So there are different ways that you can season meat. Some people just literally clean the meat, lay it out, and just start putting seasonings on top, which I do that at times. But I like being conscious of how much salt is going in my food. So instead of just kind of layering things and forgetting how much of this or how much of that I put in, and then at the end mixing it up and then the meat comes out salty and things like that, I like to kind of make a seasoning mix or a dry rub so that I can taste it, see whether it's too salty, see whether it needs more salt, and after I get it exactly to how I want it to taste, then I put it on the meat. So I'm kind of more cognizant or aware of how much salt is going into the food. So I'm going to show you some of the things that I like to use when I'm making a dry rub for meat. Of course, salt, and that's actually like one of the last things that I add. I like to add salt at the end, just if it's necessary, which it always is, but it just kind of helps to do this at the end instead of as the first step. Something that I almost always use when I am seasoning meat is garlic and onion powder. I like to use ground pepper, Italian seasoning, a little bit of allspice, some brown sugar. Some of you may say, huh, brown sugar? Just follow along with me. Paprika and Sazon. All right, guys, so I like to usually start, I hope you guys can see my bowl. Let me scoot this stuff over a little bit. When I'm making my dry rub or my seasoning mix, I usually like to start with the things that I am sure have basically little or no salt at all. So a lot of times the powders, it's just dried and grounded of whatever it is. So onion powder typically has little or no salt in it. If you want something that has salt, you would go for an onion salt, garlic salt. When it says powder, usually there's very little salt in it, if any at all. All right, I like to start with the things that have the least amount of salt in, and then I can add salt as necessary or as needed. So I like to put in my garlic powder. My onion powder. And these are the type of things that you can feel pretty guilt-free in being heavy-handed with, because as I said before, it doesn't have any salt in it. So my garlic powder, my onion powder, I'm going to add some paprika for color. Color of the meat adds to the display, how it's perceived, whether the person enjoys eating it, because half of eating is what you're seeing. I like to add some ground black pepper. Of course, not too much, because I like to add spice later with habaneros or scotch bonnets if I choose to use it, which I may use it for today. A little bit of allspice. This is where you don't really want to get heavy-handed because it has a very strong taste. So just a dash of allspice, some Italian seasoning, I'm going to add Sazon, which does have a taste, and it really does add nice flavor. So as you can see, I'm putting my salts on the latter end of the seasoning process, because as I said before, we want it to be flavorful, but we don't want it to be salty. So I'm going to put my Sazon in. I am going to, this is where you want to be light, because you can always add more salt, but once you add too much salt, it gets a little bit more difficult to reverse that. So I'm gonna This is about how much salt I put in it. And last but not least, the star of the show, brown sugar. Some of you who have seen my lemonade video that I made for the kids at school, you know I love brown sugar. Brown sugar, I just feel like it's like Epis to me. It's like an all-purpose seasoning that you can use in just about anything. It makes everything better. So I'm just gonna use a pinch of brown sugar. But the purpose of the brown sugar is to kind of counteract kind of the lime and the vinegar, because I am probably gonna add a little squeeze of lime juice to the actual meat when I'm seasoning it. But it kind of helps to mix with the sourness of the lime. The sweetness and the sourness kind of comes together, and when you mix that with like the salt and the mixture of powders and things, it just tastes excellent. So that's why I always say add a little bit of brown sugar, and I may actually add a little bit more. But first I want to stir this all together and see how it tastes, and then see what's necessary. So here is my seasoning. All right guys, I have my whisk, and I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of mixing. It smells really good as I'm mixing it together. It smells excellent. That's good. That's good. That's good, but I think I'm just going to add a little bit of something else. Let me show you my special seasoning. I know it needs. All right guys, I got 2 seasonings. When you make your seasoning mix and it's good, but you feel like it needs a little extra kick of something else, I'm gonna show you what will give it that extra kick. Some Creole seasoning or some adobo. Either one of these will, whenever you make your seasoning mix and it's good and you really like it, but it just seems like it needs a pinch of something else, try this, most likely it will help. So I'm kind of in the mood to use adobo today, so I'm gonna add a little bit of adobo and see if it gives it that kick that I'm needing. Once again, start off with just a little bit. You don't want to do too much. So let's mix that in there and see if it helps. Got a new spoon, and I'm just gonna taste a little bit of it. I think that's good. That's good. So what I'm gonna do, we have our seasoning mix. I am going to start cutting up some of the fresh vegetables that I want to use as I marinate the meat. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of chop. And I'm going to, sometimes I leave it long or julienne. I think that's what they call it in the professional cooking world. But I'm just going to kind of cube it, because when you leave it long, a lot of times it doesn't fully break down, but when you cube it small, as it's cooking with the meat, it usually breaks down. I want these to break down and not be visible. All right, I did forget my tomatoes, so I am gonna chop up the garlic, but I'm also gonna chop up some tomato. And the reason why I'm doing tomato, When you're cooking the meat, if you want the sauce to thicken, adding something like tomato to the mix will, as the tomato cooks down, it helps it thicken the sauce. So I do want the sauce to be a little bit thicker. All right guys, so we have a mix of onion, green pepper, red pepper, garlic, and a little bit of tomato. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drain this lime vinegar water off of the meat. I think that it's been soaking for a little bit, and you know, we're gonna finish cleaning it. We're gonna go ahead and put our seasoning on top of it, add our pepper mix, and then we're just gonna marinate it overnight and I'll cook it tomorrow. All right guys, it's time to season the meat. So the first thing I like to do, I like to get the meat and pour a little bit of olive oil on top. I feel like that helps the seasonings to stick to the meat a little bit better. Next thing that I'm gonna do is I am going to get some of my Epis. And I have a measuring cup right here from earlier. I'm just going to spoon some out and pour it on the meat. And I have a lot, so I can be a little bit more heavy-handed. Next, I am going to just take my seasoning mix that I made and I'm going to dump it in. I know that looks like a lot of seasoning, but we do have a lot of meat in here. You have to also take into consideration we have all these vegetables that have no seasoning on them. So every time you're adding more to the dish, there needs to be flavor to back up each layer. So just follow along with me. We're gonna add in our mixture of peppers, tomatoes, onion, garlic. We're gonna add in some of our fresh parsley. We're gonna add in some chopped thyme. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? I think this is it. So at this point, you can't be scared of the meat. You gotta get in there. So I'm gonna show you guys. You just have to mix it all together with your hands is best. Look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. The seasonings, that's why I said the paprika, the Sazon, they're important because it gives it that beautiful color. And when you cook it, it's gonna come together nice. One last thing. One thing that I forgot to add in that will help as well is a few fresh cloves. So I added about 6, I think. And remember, we already have some cloves in our marinade mix, but it also helps to add a few more fresh into the meat mix. So this is how I clean, season, marinate meat. I'm gonna let it sit overnight, cover this in foil and put it in the refrigerator. Cannot wait to taste it tomorrow. It's gonna be amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know that this is a long process to follow, but I hope you try it at home. If you do try it at home, let me know what you think. Just let me know what you thought about this video. Like, comment, share, and please do subscribe. Thank you for tuning into The Belle Life. Bye.